Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning, dear students. Today, our class is about demographic indicators. But before moving to our class, I would like to share with you a case scenario. Now, here we see that Dr. Sana, an epidemiologist, has been given the task of identifying the health problems and needs of the defined population. I hope by the end of this class, inshallah, each one of you will be able to understand the role of various demographic indicators in assessing the health situation of an area. Now, coming to the demographic indicators. Demographic characteristics provide us with an overview of an area as regards the population size, which means the number of people living in a country during a given year. Then about the population composition, which means the distribution of population according to sex and age. Then it tells us about the territorial distribution, which means the distribution of people according to the geographical location. It also gives us idea about the changes that are taking place within these characteristics and the components of the changes, which include fertility, which means the actual bearing of children. Then comes the mortality, which means susceptibility to death. And another component of change is social mobility. Now, social mobility means the change in the social status of an individual with time. A person can shift from a lower social strata or a social class to a higher social strata, and this is called as the social mobility, or it can be vice versa. Now, coming to demographic indicators, they are broadly classified into population statistics and vital statistics. Among the population statistics, we have population size, we have population density, sex ratio, and dependency ratio. Now, among the vital statistics, we have birth rate, we have death rate, growth rate, life expectancy at birth, and then mortality and fertility rates. Now, how are these demographic indicators helpful to us? First and foremost, they help us in setting our goals. Then, secondly, they help us in deciding priorities among the goals. And lastly, but not the least, these indicators help us in identifying the areas that need policy and program interventions. Now, coming to population size, as we already mentioned, that population size is the number of people living in a country during a given year. Now, India at present is the second most populous country in the world after China. The population of India was almost stationary between year 1911 and 1921 and was about 24 to 25 crores. But after 1921, there was a sudden increase in the population. So, this year of 1921 is called as the year of Big Divide. According to projections, India will be the world's most populous country by the year 2025. Now, what are the effects of this increase in the population size? When the population increases, there's an obvious increase in the consumption of resources, and this ultimately leads to poverty and poor health. So we can see the graph that till 1921 the population of India was almost stationary, and after that we see a sharp increase in the size of the population. And this year of transition, that is 1921, is called as the line of big divide. Now coming to sex ratio. What is this sex ratio? It is defined as the number of females per thousand males. At present, the sex ratio of India is 924. That is, for every 1000 males, we have 924 females. Now, this sex composition is affected by a number of factors, most important being the differentials in the mortality conditions of males and females. Then we have sex selective migration, and then sex ratio at birth. Now, what are the causes of this low sex ratio? Firstly, we have male child preference, then we have neglect of the girl child, we have female feticide, female infanticide, higher maternal mortality, and male bias in enumeration. Ideally, the sex ratio should be 1, that is, there should be equal number of males and females. But these causes lead to a lower sex ratio. Now, what are the adverse effects of this sex ratio? Firstly, there can be human trafficking, then there can be more violence against both men and women. Then there's lesser representation of female in various fields of life. Now comes the population density. Now, population density is an important index of population concentration. It is the ratio between the total population and the surface area and is defined as the number of people per square kilometer. Presently, the sex ratio of India is 464 per square kilometer. That means in every square kilometer we have 464 people residing. Now, what are the effects of this increased population density? There is strain on infrastructure, loss of habitat, unemployment, and all these factors ultimately contribute towards poor health status of a country. Now comes the dependency ratio. Dependency ratio is the ratio between those who are in the age group of economically productive life and those who are dependents. Economically productive age group are the people in the age of 16 to 65 years. And then dependents include children from 0 to 15 years of age and people more than 65 years of age. Now, this is a population pyramid which shows the distribution of people in different age groups. Now, we see that the area between the two horizontal blue lines represents the economically productive age group, whereas the area of the graph above and below the blue line represents the dependents. Now, dependency ratio is expressed per 100 adults and is calculated by dividing the total number of dependents, that is, children from 0 to 15 years of age and people more than 65 years of age, with population from 16 to 65 years of age. While computing this dependency ratio, if only young people are taken into consideration, the dependency ratio becomes young age dependency ratio. And if only older people are taken into consideration, it is called as the old age dependency ratio. Now, this dependency ratio is a crude ratio because the denominator does not consider the children who are young and employed and elderly people who are still in their employment and those adults who are not employed. So we can say the dependency ratio is a crude ratio. Now, increase in this dependency ratio will affect the economic and social progress of the country because for their day to day needs, they have to depend on economically productive people. An increase in this dependency ratio will ultimately lead to a low socioeconomic status and then ultimately the poor health conditions of a country. Now comes the birth rate. Birth rate is the number of live births per thousand media population in a given area during a given year and is computed by dividing the number of live births by the media population and then multiplied by 1000. Now, what is this media population? Media population is the population of a country as on July 1st each year. Now, July 1st is taken because it gives us the arithmetic mean of the total population in a country or a region throughout the year. Birth rate at present in India is 20 births per thousand population and for J&K the birth rate is 15.4. Now the birth rate calculated in this manner is called as the crude birth rate because the denominator includes total media population and not only the people who are exposed to the risk of childbirth. Like the total population includes children, elderly population as well, even though they are not exposed to the risk of childbirth. A refined indicator of fertility is the general fertility rate. Now, what are the effects of a higher birth rate? Now, firstly, it can lead to lower standards of living. Then there can be lower life expectancy, lower levels of education, lower social status for women, and ultimately, all these factors lead to poor health status. Now is the general fertility rate. It is defined as the number of live births per thousand women of reproductive age, irrespective of their marital status. The reproductive age is taken as all those females who are in the age group of 15 to 44 or 49 years. It is computed by dividing the total number of live births in an area during a given year divided by the median population of the female in the childbearing age. The limitation of this rate is that the denominator includes all the females in the reproductive age group, irrespective of whether they are married or unmarried. Now is the general marital fertility rate. It is a better indicator because the denominator consists only of those females who are married and are exposed to the risk of childbirth. So it is computed by dividing the number of live births by the median population of married women in the reproductive age. Now we have the age specific fertility rates. We can say it is a still more precise indicator because the denominator consists of females in a specific age group. It is expressed per thousand women of a specific age group. Now, the benefit or the usefulness of this indicator is that it gives us a clear idea about the age group that is exposed to the higher rate of fertility so that the family welfare services can be directed to that particular age group. Now here we see that it is calculated by dividing the number of live births during a year in a specified age group of the mother and this is divided by the median population of the females in the same specified reproductive age group. Example, if we have to calculate the age specific fertility rate for females who are in the age group of 20 to 24 years. So in the numerator, we will have the number of live births during a year among the females who are between 20 to 24 years of age. And then in the denominator, we will take the mid-year population of the females who are in the same age group, that is 20 to 24 years. Then is the age-specific marital fertility rate. It is the number of children born to a married woman in the said age group per 1,000 women in the same age group. So the addition is that only the married females are taken into consideration. So it is a more specific fertility rate. Now we have the total fertility rates. Now total fertility rates are computed by dividing the age-specific fertility rates for all the 6 age groups, which include the female in the age group of 15 to 44 or 49 years of age, and it is expressed per woman. We can say the total fertility rate is defined as the average number of children a woman would have during her entire reproductive life if she passes through the current fertility rate. The total fertility rate at present is 2.20. So in total fertility rate, we take into consideration all the children, whether they are boys or girls. Now is the total marital fertility rate. It is a sum of age-specific marital fertility rates. The only difference from the fertility rate is that the denominator includes females who are married. So we can say that it is defined as the average number of children a married woman would have during her reproductive age if she passes through the current fertility rate. Now comes the gross reproduction rate. It is defined as the average number of girls that would be born to a woman during her reproductive age if she experiences the current fertility rate without dying. So in the total fertility rate, we use to calculate the total number of children, whether they are boys or they are girls. But here in the gross reproduction rate, we only take into consideration the average number of girls that are born to a female, because it is the girls who take up the function of reproduction. So it is computed by dividing the number of female live births by the total number of live births multiplied by 1,000. The gross reproduction rate of India is 1.11 per 1,000. Now comes the net reproduction rate. It is defined as the average number of female children that a newborn girl will bear during her reproductive age, assuming the fixed age specific fertility and mortality rates. So here even the mortality rates are taken into consideration. So the number of the live female children who take up the function of reproduction are taken into consideration. So we can say it is the extent to which the mothers produce the female infants who survive to replace them. For population to be stable, it is important that the NRR or the net reproduction rate should be 1. So we see here that NRR1 means that the female population is maintained and the population remains almost constant. Now for NRR to be 1, it is important that the couple protection rate should be 60%. Now what is this couple protection rate? It is defined as the percentage of the eligible couples who adopt any one method of contraception or family planning so that they are protected effectively against the childbirth. Now, why is this couple protection rate of 60% important? Now, it is assumed that almost 60% of the births are of either the third order or the higher order. So, a couple protection rate of 60% will cut off the third and the higher order births. In other words, we can say that couple protection rate of 60% means attaining a two-child norm. And this will put a check on the birth rate and thus the population of an area. Now comes the family size. It means the total number of children a woman has born at a given point of time. Family size of India at present is 4.8. Now, family size depends upon a number of factors. Firstly, is the age at marriage. Younger the age of the female at the time of marriage, longer will be the span of her reproductive age, and so greater or larger will be the size of the family. Then is the duration of marriage. Again, longer the duration of marriage, more will be the reproductive age span, and larger will be the size of the family. Similarly, literacy level of the couple is also important because more aware the couple, more aware are they aware about the importance of the measures of family planning. So, the reception of the various planning services is better. Then is the availability of the family welfare services. Easy the availability of the services, higher will be the rate of acceptance of the family planning measures. Then is the preference for the male child. We have seen that females they keep on giving birth to children until and unless a male baby is born. So this is a factor which again leads to increase in the size of the family. Now comes the death rate. It is defined as the number of deaths occurring per thousand media population in a given area during a given year and is computed by dividing the number of deaths by the major population into 1000. The death rate of India at present is 6.2 per thousand, but J&K having better indicators has a death rate of 4.9. Now comes the growth rate. Growth rate is defined as increase in the population of an area from one year to another and is called as the population growth. It is expressed as annual growth rate. Growth rate is computed by subtracting the crude death rate from the crude birth rate. Growth rate of India for the year 2018 was 13.8 and for J&K the growth rate is 10.5. Now here's a graph showing the estimated population growth rate of India. So we see that the population of India is still on an increase. Now what are the effects of this increase in the population growth? Obviously, increase in the population growth will lead to increase in the size of the population, which would put pressure on the resources available. So, this will lead to the lower standard of living, and all these factors will contribute towards the poor health and the vulnerability to the diseases. Now is the life expectancy at birth. It is the average number of years a person is expected to live according to the mortality pattern existing in that country. At present, the life expectancy in India is 70.4 years. And in the females, it is 70.8 years, whereas in the males, it is 69.2 years. Now comes the literacy level. Literacy means ability to read and write any language with understanding. Crude literacy rate is the percentage of population who are literate. It is calculated by dividing the number of literate persons by the total population. Now comes the effective literacy rate. It is the percentage of the population aged 7 years and above who are literate and is calculated by dividing the number of literate persons aged 7 years and above from the total population aged 7 years and above. Literacy rate of India at present is 77.7%. Now it is obvious that higher the literacy rate, better will be the socio-economic and the health standard of a country. So, socioeconomic development will lead to improvement in the living standard, which will ultimately lead to the health and prosperity of the country.